My name is Grace. I know what that means to people. They hear it and they picture something soft, something yielding. They're not entirely wrong. I have always known how to make people comfortable, how to make a room feel warmer just by walking into it. I learned that early. I also learned something else early. That the women who are remembered are not always the kindest ones. They are the ones who know exactly what they are worth, and who never, not once, let anyone forget it. At school, I was the one they watched. Not because I tried, because I didn't have to. There's a difference, and most people never understand it. The ones who try are always slightly desperate. I was never desperate. University was the same. Different rooms, same dynamic. Professors who lingered a little too long after class. Girls who hated me without ever speaking to me. Men who wanted to be seen with me more than they wanted to know me. I understood that. I was never offended by it. At work, it continued. I won't list the promotions or the awards, that would be tedious. What I will say is that I have always known how to be in a room, how to make the right people feel like they are the only person in it. And then there was Thomas. Thomas was the kind of man who doesn't notice he's being watched because he never had to notice. He just assumed it. That kind of confidence is either very attractive or very irritating. On Thomas, it was devastating. But Thomas was different from the others. The others saw my face, my cheekbones, the way I carried myself, my body, which I have always taken care of, deliberately, seriously, and which they appreciated in the way men appreciate things they believe they've discovered. Thomas saw that too. He was not blind. But he also saw the rest. My intelligence, my precision, the way I solved problems before anyone else had named them. He used to say I was the sharpest person in any room I entered. He said it like it was the most attractive thing about me. I believed him. For a long time, I believed him. We were the same in that way. Two people who had never had to reach for anything. It was almost boring how well we fit. Almost. We got married on a Saturday in September. Everyone said we looked like a photograph. They weren't wrong. The first episode happened on a Tuesday morning. Thomas couldn't get out of bed. Not tired, something else. A heaviness he couldn't name. We thought it was stress. He was working too much. We all said that. The doctors said it too at first. Then the confidence started. Small things. He'd lose a word mid-sentence. Stand in the kitchen not remembering why he'd come in. Once he called me by his mother's name. He laughed it off. I laughed too. The trembling came later. His hands mostly. Sometimes his voice. The doctors ran tests. Then more tests. They used words like inconclusive and monitoring. I took notes. I asked questions. Thomas sat very still and let me speak for him. It was easier that way. He tired so quickly. I took over everything. His emails, just the important ones at first, then all of them. His calls with his family, his appointments, his social obligations. It made sense. He needed to rest. And I had always been better with people anyway. His mother called once, directly to his phone, not mine. I found out later. She'd asked him if he was happy. He'd said he wasn't sure what happy felt like anymore. She told me this herself at Christmas, standing in my kitchen, her voice very careful. I told her that was the illness talking. She nodded, but she didn't stop watching me. I want to be honest about something, because I think honesty, real honesty, is what most people are too afraid to offer. Being devoted to someone who is disappearing is not romantic. It is exhausting. It is lonely in a way that has no name. And I am only human. The neighbour moved in 8 months ago. I noticed him the way you notice weather, something that changes the atmosphere without announcing itself. He was tall, dark hair going silver at the temples, the kind of man who carries things easily. The kind of man Thomas used to be. I ran into him at the grocery store one afternoon. We arrived at the entrance at the same time. He held the door and placed his hand on my lower back to let me pass. Not high. Lower than that. Deliberate enough that we both knew it was deliberate. Neither of us said anything. I thanked him for the door. He smiled. We went our separate ways into the store. We crossed paths several times in the aisles after that. Produce, wine, the long aisle at the back. Each time, a look that lasted slightly too long. At some point, I lost track of him entirely. I found my way back to my car 20 minutes later than I'd planned. I'm not sure where the time went. I drove home. I put the groceries away. I made Thomas his dinner. I didn't think about it again. That's not entirely true, but I chose to make it true. There are evenings when I stand at our bedroom window. His light is often on across the way, late into the night. I don't close the curtains. Thomas is in the bed behind me. When he's like this, the episodes, you can't tell if he's awake or asleep. His eyes sometimes open without seeing. So I stand there. I change slowly. I face the window. And I tell myself it's because the room is warm, because I am tired, because I have earned the right to stand in my own bedroom without thinking about who might be watching. I leave the curtains open. And then there was Mark. Mark works 2 desks from mine. He started asking about Thomas early on, genuinely, not out of politeness. He remembered the details from week to week, the name of Thomas's specialist, which days were harder than others. He paid attention in the way that costs something. He looks like Thomas. The Thomas from before. I noticed that the first time I really looked at him. It unsettled me. Then it didn't. One evening I stayed late. I'd just gotten off the phone with the hospital. Nothing acute, just the particular exhaustion of being told, again, that there was nothing new to tell. I was still at my desk when Mark came back for his jacket. He saw my face. I don't know what he saw exactly. I was not crying. I don't cry at work. But something was showing that I hadn't meant to show. That evening, I was wearing a lace camisole, a dark skirt. I'd felt good that morning, put together, like myself again. Mark stood behind my chair. He placed both hands on my shoulders. I didn't move. He came around. He crouched down in front of me, to be level with me. He took my face in his hands. He said something. I'm not going to repeat what he said. I let him. We stayed like that for a long time. The office was empty. Nobody came. The messages started after that. Checking in. How was the evening? How was Thomas? Then later. Then much later. Shower first. Always shower first. You know why you take a shower at 11 at night? I knew. He knew. After that, a conversation that stretched past midnight. Almost every night. Long. Warm. Necessary in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. We never discussed what it was. We didn't have to. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I've stopped trying to decide. Thomas changed. That's what I tell people. The illness changed him. And that's true. It is true. But it's not the whole truth. He became watchful. He started noticing things he hadn't noticed before. Or perhaps he'd always noticed and simply hadn't had the energy to react. He asked me once about Mark. He'd seen a name on my phone. I'd left it on the counter. Nothing incriminating, just a name. But the way he said it. Mark. Who is Mark? Not a question. A statement dressed as a question. I told him Mark was a colleague. Which is true. He looked at me for a long time. Then he looked away. He didn't ask again. His brother came to visit in March, stayed 4 days. By the 3rd day, he was going through drawers. He said he was looking for a phone charger. I said nothing. I made dinner. I smiled. I was very, very gracious. He left on a Sunday morning. He hugged Thomas for a long time at the door. Thomas held on. I watched from the kitchen. One night, late, after I'd put Thomas to bed, I passed the bedroom door and heard his voice. Low. Careful. He was on the phone. His own phone. Talking to his mother. I didn't go in. I waited until he was done. Then I brought him his water and his evening medication, and I kissed his forehead, and I turned off the light. The family had decided, apparently, that I was the problem. That I was isolating Thomas, controlling his access to people, speaking for him too much. His mother sent a letter, an actual letter on paper, asking Thomas to call her from his own phone. I read it before I gave it to him. Of course I did. I was managing his correspondence. That was my role. Before he got sick, and I've never said this out loud to anyone, before he got sick, he was pulling away from me. I could feel it, the way you feel a tide going out. Slowly, then all at once. There was someone at his office, a woman. I don't know if anything happened. I chose not to know. And then the episode started, and he needed me again. Completely. Entirely. I won't say it was a relief, but I won't say it wasn't. I found it on a Wednesday. He'd hidden it in the lining of his winter coat, the one he hasn't worn since last year, the one I was taking to the dry cleaner. It was addressed to his brother, unsealed, as if he wasn't sure he'd send it, or as if he wanted me to find it. I've thought about that. I'm still not sure which. I sat down at the kitchen table. I read it. He wrote that he couldn't trust his own memory anymore, that he felt himself becoming smaller, less present, less real. He wrote that decisions were being made for him that he didn't remember agreeing to, that he sometimes couldn't tell whether he was confused or whether he was being confused. He wrote that he was afraid, not of dying, of disappearing while still alive, and that the person making him disappear was the person who slept beside him every night and called it love. He wrote that he didn't know if he was losing his mind or finally beginning to use it. I read it twice, then a third time. I folded it very carefully along its original creases. I put it back in the coat lining, exactly where I found it. Thomas has always had such a vivid imagination. It was one of the things I loved about him when we met, before. I'm making his dinner now, the same thing I make every Wednesday. He says it's the only meal that doesn't make him feel worse. I'm glad. I just want him to feel better. That's all I've ever wanted. Served cold. Because the most dangerous person in the room is always the one everyone trusts the most.